Call to order the regular meeting for the Upson County Planning Commission, Monday, June 10th, 2024. Item 1 is roll call.
Commissioner Pitts.
Yes, sir.
Chair McKinley.
Yes.
Commissioner Hilton.
Here.
Vice Chair Dawson.
Here.
Commissioner Fallon.
Here.
You have quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Item 2, we will go into executive session for legal. So we will stay seated. We'll be back here shortly with you, and then we'll continue the agenda.
I'm standing. You get this.
Okay.
Okay, item 3 is the adoption of meeting minutes. We have 2 of those. February 12th, do we need to take motions for each one of those? Okay. First is the February 12th, 2024 meeting. Was in your packets. Do I have any changes, comments, additions?
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The next one, item B, is the May 13th, 2024 meeting. That was included in your packet. Any changes, additions, or do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept the May 13th regular meetings.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item 4 is old business. The application for rezoning, REZ 2024-03, Hope of Generations Church, represented by Scott Harper, Alfred L. McCard, 212 McCard Road, parcel 014053. This is a continuation from the April 8th and the May 13th meetings.
Madam Chair, I would like to recuse myself for item number 4.
Okay, thank you. Let that be noted. So we will, what we got here? Okay, so with the continuation, I know we have some new material that has been provided to us for this. Mr. Harper, would you like to, or,
I'll present.
okay, fine. That's, if you'll come up to one of the marks.
Public hearing.
We're continuing it, right? We don't have to vote. We don't need, yeah. Okay.
And you have the presentation available?
Well, we have the 3 documents that we were told were different. So beyond that, that's all we've got.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just gonna grab my laptop just to make sure I don't miss anything from our presentation, but I think the site plan should.
Right, this is the revised site plan that we were just sent.
Okay.
Just while you're getting set up, the changes that I noted where you'll see on the western side, they actually denote where there's some drainage, where the retention detention would go. And there's a change in the one entrance there on McCard, where it was a right-in, right-out. Now it's just a regular entrance. And beyond that, I'm not quite sure what other changes there are on this particular.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll get started and go through my presentation here. My name's Barbie Kelly. My address is 350 Research Court. I'm with Planners and Engineers Collaborative, so we're the consultant working with Scott Harper to rezone this property. I'm an engineer myself, and I'm here in lieu of Mr. Chad Lambeth, who you've met with previously, who's out on paternity leave. So I'll be going through the presentation and answering the previous questions in lieu of Chad. The property is located at 212 McCard Road, and it's along McCard Road and Highway 74. And then going to the site plan here, I had also submitted, I know there was a question previously about the topography and stormwater. Yeah, this image here. So We looked into the existing topography and stormwater characteristics of the existing site. As you can see, the high point is up towards the northeast of the site and kind of flows southwest towards the existing creek. And so the existing stormwater characteristics as they stand today will remain largely unchanged in the future development, with still having the high point draining down towards that same direction into the existing creek. So that's the intent for the stormwater characteristics, to maintain that the flow, the general characteristics as they stand. And then getting into the site plan, if you could change the slide. This will be a ministry campus. The primary use would be the house of worship, called out as the sanctuary on the site. And there are the additional buildings that are the ministry building, an administrative facility, and the cabins, which are for the retreats that are held as a part of the worship campus. Previous concerns regarding traffic and access have been addressed through changing the access points to the site. So you'll see that the primary access with a right in, right out full access is now shown on McCard Road. And the access point on Pickard Road, which was a question of concern, has been changed to a right out only, which should mitigate some of the safety considerations that left turns out of the site would result in. So we have taken that into consideration. And as well, the placement of the access on Pickard Road has been chosen as part of that high point that was shown in the last image, to show that you'll be looking up and down slopes towards oncoming traffic to help mitigate those safety concerns as well. And obviously, as a part of full engineering down the road past this zoning issue, there will be more exhibits and more studies done to show that those accesses are safe and fully compliant with the requirements of Upson County for design. And going a bit into the site plan, we've shown the proposed location of our stormwater management facility, which you'll see kind of to the southwest of the site, just west of the primary buildings. This was discussed previously, but this use is a low impact use for this property. As you can see, there's quite a lot of open space and very little impervious area added to this large 55-acre site. So it will be a low impact to the stormwater characteristics from that standpoint, as opposed to a more intense usage such as commercial or another use. As well, the intent with the site is to leave as much area undisturbed as possible, so that 100-foot natural buffer that will go will remain around the site, as well as additional unimpacted areas as much as possible, because the church would like the characteristic of the site to remain wooded and have that sort of character to it. And so that will help to not impact the stormwater characteristics as well. But that being said, further down the road, once we get into full engineering design, it will be required to study that existing creek where the water will be, is currently draining to and will continue to drain to. The creek, as a part of state requirements, will be studied as far as the existing flow rates and then the new flow rates that will occur as a result of this development. And if the existing creek is impacted, we will be required to reduce the flow rates to less than or equal to the existing flow rates. Additionally, the creek currently flows through an existing culvert that runs under Highway 74. And as well as a part of the development of the site, it would be required to study that culvert and make sure that it is appropriately sized for the existing and proposed flow rates. And so developing the property could actually help to mitigate the existing stormwater issues that various residents in the area have brought to our attention, to not only keep them as they are, but to possibly mitigate any existing issues if we discover them during engineering. And then a few other concerns that were brought previously were the access to the kind of island cutoff area parcel towards the northeast of the site. It's not shown on here, but the full intent of the church is to provide an access easement to that parcel. And then there were some questions as well about which parcels would be included as a part of this rezoning. And so the boundaries shown on this image here are the correct boundaries for the site. The Hope Inn would not be included as a part of the rezoning, but is shown just to show its proximity to the location of the site. As well, the existing home on the south property border would not be included as a part of the rezoning, but it is relevant as far as the church providing upkeep to that existing home and improving it. So I think that's about what I have for this image here. Let me continue down here. I believe this image is the same from last time for the rendering of what the site would look like. Not this one. Yeah, so this is a rendering of the site. I know this this presentation is similar to the ones we've given previously, but I just want to make sure there's so many people here today that everyone has a chance to see the presentation. And so this is a rendering of what the site would look like. And we also have an image showing the proposed greenery around the site and natural buffer.
No, I don't think I still
We
have
skipped
that.
it. It's okay. So there will be a 100-foot buffer around the entire site that we would like to remain as it is today in its natural condition. And then additionally to provide additional screening to the neighbors anywhere where there might not be adequate or existing tree cover, we would like to propose to plant additional tree cover to provide that screening from the neighbors in an effort to be a good neighbor. And then another thing that was brought up previously was the water and sewer concerns for the site. We have provided, as a part of our submission package, a water availability letter. There's an existing 12-inch main, I believe, along Highway 74, although I might have that wrong. But we do have an existing water availability letter from Upson County Utilities. So we submitted our information to them as far as what our intention of use of the water system would be, the amount of capacity that we would need to serve this use. And we have received a letter from Upson County advising us that the water would be available for our use. On the sewer side, our intent is to use a septic system. So that will be the utility component of our site. And then I think the last thing of my presentation was the rendering of the cabins.
No.
This one?
It's like the old day when slides skipped. I don't know if it was right there.
Yeah, I think it popped up for a second, so hopefully everyone was able to see it. But
There we go.
Oh, there we go. Here's a rendering of the intent of what we would like the cabins to look like, their character, and approximate kind of idea of what the cabins would look like for our use, and I believe that concludes my presentation, and I'd like to cede the rest of my time to questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So before we get started, just making sure everyone that wants to speak has signed this form. Just making sure no one came in late. Okay. So I'm going to start at the beginning. When I call your name, if you will, come up to one of the two X's, state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes. Each person has 5 minutes. Mr. Dawson will keep the clock for us. First is Elaine Jackson.
I'm Elaine Jackson. I live at 105 McCard Road, which is directly across from the open field. I can see Mr. McCard's house. I can see the trailer in his pasture. In 2019, my parents bought almost 16 acres between McCard Road and Highway 74, and we began to build pastures and clear for a home, and we dismantled by hand an old wooden dog trot house on the original property from the late 1890s. In 2021, we moved a double wide onto my parents' property and have since been making a home there. We followed the rules of the 35-foot setback in this county at the side of the house and the 100 and something, whatever the setback is for the front of the house. So our home is actually turned so that you can look to the left and see the sunset, and you can look to the right and see the mountains and the scenery. It's peaceful, tranquil, beautiful. It's my front porch. So I will start by saying I am 100 plus, if there was such, against this church building this facility in this area. I do not think it is the correct place for it. I will say I wouldn't want Mountain View to build there. I would not want any other big church. I wouldn't want a small church to build there. This is my home. So to me, it's like the separation of church and state. It's a separation for me of personal and business. And if you take a minute and put yourself in my shoes, you would not want anything like this to come and settle in your line of sight. The 100-foot setback does nothing for me. Like I said, I'm right across from a clearing. The only clearing, there is no wood. The woods start way past the 50 and the 100-foot setback. I have other concerns. Every time I come to one of these or I read more about it, there's more changes, more changes, more changes. So one of my major concerns is if you rezone this, how far are the changes going to go? What confines what actually happens in the long run? They say, well, we're going to plant you some trees because you have this opening. What kind? How big? Are they going to start this big and it be 10 years before it provides coverage? Are they going to be maintained? What happens if they die in 2 years? You know, it looks good up there, but I live there. I wake up there every morning and I go to bed there every night. I hate the fact that they did what they did to the lines on 74 because that disrupted the peace, just that little bit. You know, what about the noise? How long is the construction phase? I've heard none of those types of details. How long do I have to listen to this? The beeping of the backing up, the saws. It's a concern for me. My husband has asthma. It's medically documented. What about burning all the trees and everything and all that we breathe for how long? I have a 7-year-old level 2 nonverbal autistic grandson that I keep. And increased traffic on McCard Road scares me. He can't change. I can't move. I don't have their capital. I don't have their options. They could build this anywhere that's already zoned for what they want. More power to them. I just don't want it in my front yard. People come through to their training, they're here for 2 weeks, they go on. They come from other countries, they come from other states. Surely they can drive 10 more miles away from where I live to get their healing. I drive by this place every Sunday on the way to my church, nobody's there, but it's a church. I go by on Wednesday night, nobody's there. 70, 80 cars there today on Monday. It's not school, it's June. It's not church, it's training. It's not training citizens that pay taxes on a regular basis that were born here, or that went to Collins Kindergarten, or that used to be a Bobcat at Thurston because they lived there their whole life. I was raised in Sunset Village. As an adult, I purchased on West Peachtree Street. I now live on McCard Road. When I rode the school bus home with my friend, they didn't even go down McCard Road. It was such a backwood road. They dropped the Garners off at the stop sign on the highway. The road is dilapidated. It will cost the county to fix it within a very short amount of time with the traffic on it. If you pull out one end, it's a terrible intersection. When my daughter began driving at 16, I made her always go to one specific end, because the other one, I believe there'll be traffic accidents.
Thank you.
I'm trying to cut it off.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. We got
Next on the list is Charles, and I'm trying to read your right, is it Watola? Watola.
I'm Charles Watola, and I live at 46 McCard Road. And this development will be on, it will be my western side, their eastern side, and my northern side, their southern side. And it looks like where the cabins are going to go, are going to be in my backyard. And if you look around, there's a lot of people here in support of this particular development. But all the people in the proximity, they don't live there. All the people that live in the area, all the families in the surrounding area are united in opposition. And there's a lot of areas with open land in the area that they would go without zero, they can move there without zero opposition. And we, like I say, all the people who are going to be affected are right there. We oppose it. I participate, me and my family and friends participate in a lot of shooting events. And we shoot back there in our property. It's legal right now. And we do it in the back, right there close to the, where they talking about the cabins. Are they going to be calling the police every time we go out there and try to participate in our shooting events? Is that going to be changed because of their convenience? They're right now in the planting stage. They can plant it anywhere. Lots of open areas. They go down Pleasant Valley Road, lots of open areas, and no one cares. But we care in our area, and we are standing against opposition. They show the topographic map there. I've never seen any place where the rainwater comes down with the velocity that it does in that area. And when they start digging up the property over there, that mud is going to come down like they did not anticipate. Because unless you've been there when it rains, you're not going to be able to anticipate it. There's not enough silt fence in Upson County that's going to stop that mud from coming down to our property where we have two small ponds that we fish in. And we don't want that to go away. Our property would be worth much less without those two ponds on the area. We fish in it, we develop it, we count on it for food and recreation, and this is just more impact. When I come down here 5 years ago from Cobb County because of the development, I was looking for a peaceful place to settle and raise my family. And so far it's been great, and we really love it. We love Upson County, and we hope to stay here. But we selected that property because of that zoning as it is. Now to come in 5 years later and change the zoning, that's just not right. And putting the shrubs around the area, that's a great idea. But I'm 75 years old. By the time those shrubs do me any good, I'm going to be dead and gone, all right? They grow at 2 feet a year, so how big are the plants going to be that they put there? There's no guarantees what they're going to do like that. So I'm through saying what I got to say, but all the families, just remind you, all the families that are right in that area, we don't want it. We don't care where they put it. We're not against them having to develop their business, but put it somewhere else. Thank you.
Next is Chris Jackson.
I'm Chris Jackson. I live at 105 McCord Road, right across the street from the open field. My wife and I moved out of the city to get away from people, to get away from traffic. For 9 years, we lived at the corner of Old Tarleton Road and 36. And all I heard 24 hours a day was cars, 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 cars. Fire trucks, police cars, people revving their engines, tractor trailers, and all that. We moved to the county. Then this 16 and a half acres that we secured, her parents secured, and set up our home site where we want to live the rest of our lives out. And I don't want to see 400 cars coming up and down the road. That's a lot of traffic, and that's what their parking lot is designed to hold. 410 cars. That's a lot of cars coming and going on a road that's not built for that. It's a dangerous road. Both ends of that road are dangerous. When you come out facing towards the pool, it's very dangerous. You can't see coming over that hill. And when you come out at the bottom, right to the right, there's a caution light. And people still fly through that intersection all the time. I have went to pull out with my truck and had to stop and back up for people coming down the hill, coming too fast. Those trucks fly up and down through there, and it's dangerous. Now they want to put this intersection or this entrance on McCard Road in that hard elbow curve right there. You can't see coming around it from either direction, but they want to put an entrance there because the people on Pickard Road complained. It's not safe on either side, and neither one of those roads are set up to handle that kind of traffic. I'm going to say what my wife said. For the last 3 or 4 weeks, I have went by that church. That's what it's called. I have seen people, no people there on Sunday. Every other church in this community meets on Sundays and Wednesdays, but theirs. But they have people there for 2 or 3 weeks at a time. They own multiple properties right down the road there. They own a hotel. That hotel has been booked for the past 2 or 3 weeks. A church doesn't operate like that. A church is sent in to reach the local community to win souls for Jesus Christ, not to turn a dollar. They don't reach the people in our community. People from all over the world come there. Healing is free, and you can get it any day from the Lord. You don't have to come there to get it. But I know many people come there. I have a lot of concerns. But my grandchild is a great concern. You can't talk to him. You can't convince him. You can't tell him what to do. And to put that many cars on that road will endanger his life when he's at my house. And I don't think that's fair because they want to build a new facility across the street from my house. So that is our concerns. I have other concerns, but I'm going to hold on to them. If you look at that map, it's AR all around there, except for 3 spots. AR is agricultural residential, right? That's an agricultural and residential area. It's not a business area. That little bit of commercial down there was necessary when it was commercialized years ago. There were stores out through that part of the community because they were necessary. There's not any other commercial businesses out there. And this one doesn't need to be there either. Thank you.
Mr. Wattell, is it your son? Okay.
Hello, I'm Charles Wattola also, and I live right next door to my dad. We have 15 acres of land.
What's your address?
50 McCard.
Okay.
So my land is going to come right the same where the cabins are in the backyard, and it's a 100-foot barrier, and it's intended barrier. It doesn't say it's permanent or it doesn't say it's fixed. It's going to be that way. It's intended to be that way, right? Maybe a barrier, maybe not. I don't know. My biggest thing, and y'all showed it perfect, it was great, that topical map you showed that showed the elevation changes. Well, all that runs right down, funnels right down to our property. We're going to have, we already have water problems right now. We're trying to address them as I speak. We've got, when it rains really hard, it pours off of there and comes down, and I've got a creek on both sides of my house that is just for the day. I have a creek. I'm very concerned that we're going to have mud and runoff coming off down there, and we've spent a lot of money. We bought fish and stocked this pond up, and everything's healthy, and everything's doing good. I'd hate to lose all that with all this mud and runoff coming across my property. And same as my dad said, we hunt. First of all, 6 years ago, I moved in here, and we were looking for a place where I could hunt, fish, and relax, and have a good time, and just raise my kids, my grandkids. And we found it, and now it's fixing to be pulled away from me, it sounds like. I mean, I don't want to lose it, and I'm not willing to lose it. I'm willing to fight. It's whatever it takes to get this not happening. I'm very strongly opposed to it. I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus, and I love Jesus. But it's got nothing to do with this in my backyard. I don't want it in my backyard. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to see it. I don't want to smell it. I don't want nothing around me to create extra problems in my yard. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to, like she said, all the construction, it could take a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. How long are we going to listen to that? I have no idea. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to be part of it. And we're very opposed to it. And if we need petitions or whatever we need to do, we need to figure out how to do that. I don't know what to do. I'm just a common person, but I moved out here with all intentions of spending all my money and all my time on this property and making it the best I can. And now I'm pretty far into it, and I'm really discouraged. I'm scared to death, actually, of what may happen. And I just really am opposed to it and just want to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jacqueline Lewis.
I live at 1978 Pickard Road, which is just below that long flag easement at Miss Bloodworth's house. I am not opposed to the church. I'm not opposed to what they do. I am opposed to the location. I am opposed to the egresses, because today I did ride up to Tammy Brown, which is previous was Francis and Billy Brown's home, went up their driveway and came back down. That is a horrible, horrible location. They can do all the time studies that they choose to on the traffic on Pickard Road, but till you live on Pickard Road, you have no idea how many people travel that road as a shortcut. And when I say shortcut, we have asked for extra sheriff's department presence and state patrol presence that we know, because people are riding 80 and 90 miles an hour down that road. One was just stopped for an 85 and a 45 last week. So people are driving like maniacs on there, and it's just we're looking for an accident to happen. The field across my road is going to be a helipad, because that's how bad it's going to be when somebody has a wreck there. I was very glad to find out that they would have county water, because one of my main issues was the well issues. And I want to piggyback on these guys. I live on the opposite side of this property on Pickard, and you don't know how much rain comes off that mountain, because there's two streams that come out of McGraw Mountain, and when it rains anywhere from 4 to 8 inches, just put on your life jacket, because it's pretty bad. So it causes a lot of water to just stand for weeks on our property and across the road in the guy's fields that he's supposed to put cows in. So, but the ingress, egress, there's a lot of places it could be other than Pickard Road, and I hope that the county does not approve that, because I think it is in the best interest of the citizens. And also, I know that y'all are very well aware of how many people worked on this character map, how many people signed their names to this character map. And right here is where it's at. And that does not say that we want any kind of businesses there. We want it to stay rural America. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Stanley Elliott.
I'm Stanley Elliott. I live at 5131 Crest Highway, Thomaston, Georgia. My property is 100 yards straight across from where the Hope Motel is. I have lived there all of my life. I'm 69 years old, except for about 3 years. I live within 200 yards of where the property is that I'm on right now. I don't care what you've been told by these engineers and stuff. I've lived there and seen the stuff. First off, there is no good place to put a facility. I don't know where you're gonna get the dirt from, but the north corner up by Miss Dickerson's house, that is the most substantial place there is. There used to be an old pond that was a Denham pond, a lake. It wasn't a pond, it was a lake. There was so much water that flowed down through that area that it blew that pond dam out over the years. Plus, you've got the old M&B Railroad. You start going into that M&B Railroad right down there behind the McCard house, you're cutting in the stability of coming off of the mountains all around it. The people that live over on Pickett Road, right there where Pie Tower Road comes in, to the left, them's another creek. Then you've got another creek right on the other side. I talked to people down the road from there that own property that when they start doing all this grade work and everything, I don't care how much silk fence you put in. I've been in construction basically all my life and heavy equipment. When you start doing that, you're gonna cause problems. I don't see this county water system keeping up. I've seen a lot of work going on out there. And as far as sewage, I own property right now below Thomaston that all the people came in and they put their septic tanks to my property. I lost both my wells. I had to move the people out of my houses that were renting. And on top of that, the noise is terrible already. The state highway and their zip strips on the side, that is a joke. You have never heard all the mess in your life. Plus, you can hear everything off of Pickett Road from right there where Miss Dickerson's house is, all the way down through to my house. The Crestide Grill, when you're there and the people are there, which Mr. Brown's not open but a couple of days a week, you can hear them slamming doors, you can hear them laughing and talking at my house. The traffic is so bad, the jack brakes in the trucks now already. I'm talking about tractor trucks, and I'm talking about loaded trucks of sand and gravel and materials from the ports. They come through that intersection. When you come down off of Pickett Road, you better look to your left up on the hill, right up there above McCard Road, the lower entrance to McCard Road, because if you don't, somebody on top of the hill will run over your tail when you come out up there if you don't watch it. We've had a lot of wrecks at that intersection down now. And like I said, we've got a lot of noise. If you go out right now, there's a bunch of circle marks right there under the caution light where somebody had a good time playing. Now, I mean, tractor truck gets them. I pull people out of wrecks that have died. And when you put a 400 car parking spot, a flat spot, and you put this, where they're showing this open flat spot, I don't care how much material you've got around it, you're going to have water runoff. And you can do all the grading you want to. And why is it right for the people that live there for 3 to 5 years put up with construction, drainage, noise, and then what if all of a sudden these people just decide, okay, we didn't make it, tough stuff. And then these people's ponds are dead, their houses and everything else have been impacted. And this is a rural community. That's why I moved back from South Carolina to here. I wanted to live in the country. I wanted to live where I grew up, with the people I grew up, without all the racket and everything. And this is a business. I'm sorry. I'm going to just be point blank with you. This is a business. When you house people and charge them, when you teach them and you charge them, and everything you do is for money, this is a business. It's not just a church. I have nothing against the church, period. But this is not just a church. This is a business. And why should people that have paid their life savings to live in a place all of a sudden have somebody come in and can just a few people take over for the whole group of the people that's there? Thank you.
Come on.
Side, punch on side.
Help him out, Jim.
you're fired.
I'm in, council. Let's throw this right.
Hit it on the side, silence. There you go.
There we go. Get me out.
Next on the list is Steve Brown.
I'm Steve Brown, I live on 1954 Pickard Road, and my sister lives on 2156 Pickard Road, but Mr. Barfield mentioned that she was at her house earlier today. There's no good, I stood up here not long ago protesting against an RV park they were gonna put there because of the same traffic problems, the same everything. I don't discriminate against nothing, okay? I mean, it's that, but there's no good in-way or out-way to do it. I mean, either right or wrong, you can't turn it, and you know, and nobody's factoring in the sun. I've been on that road for 30 years of my life, and in the morning at 7 o'clock going one way, you can't see nothing, and coming home at 5:30, 6 o'clock, you can't see nothing going west. And one of your members got killed several years ago on Pickard Road because of his son walking a child to school. It's not a safe road at all, and 2 people have lost their lives because of the way it's laid out. And, you know, it's like, there's no simple way of doing it. And I know, you know, you're doing God's work, and I hope that church blossoms and does whatever it needs to do. But the more people who come, the traffic's gonna get worse. The more joint, more show, more traffic, more parking lots, more bigger. I know it's not, your hopes and dreams are not for it to stay the same size now. You want it to get bigger and you want it to grow. And the more it grows, the more it's gonna be, and once it's there, there's nothing we can, you know, I got no other say, nothing to say about it, so, thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the list is Casey Elliott.
Go far up there.
Casey Elliott. I live at 6817 Crest Highway. Hello again. Basically, I have some concerns about it. Like a lot of people have said, I have no issue with the church. It's basically the location. And to me, there are plenty of other locations. There's locations in town. There's locations that they don't have to get rezoned. There's locations that the traffic flow would be better. There's locations that it would impact the environment less. There's locations that would impact the people around there less. As some people point out, it is definitely dangerous. I have, for various reasons, came out recently on either end of McCard Road. It's not great. The caution light, there have been accidents and fatalities at the caution light. Pickard Road, as people said, the traffic's picked up on there, it's crazy. And then the water flow, one of the creeks that the engineer talked about, that creek basically goes into Hurricane Creek and then flows into the Flint River. I mean, you can control the flow, but what about all the stuff coming out with the 400 and something parking lot? You got people parking there, you got people staying there, you got cabins, and as the gentleman before me said, Mr. Brown, they probably look to grow as well. There's the environmental, like I said, issues with the water, there's a salinity that everybody wants to be out there. I'm the 4th generation, it's already 5 generations living in that area, my family's been living there for decades. One of the neat things, but it has to do with the noise, is as a child, my dad would tell me to go outside. He'd like, go outside and yell, you know, and you can sit there and just hear with the valleys and everything around you, just hear my echo come back. So what's gonna happen if the church succeeds and they fill up, you know, 400 and some parking spaces, and they're having events over there? And it may be okay for them to have events, but like one of the gentlemen said before, they like to shoot. My dad actually has a dove hunt that he does every year. So hopefully the sheriff or the game will be called on him every time he goes out there and they try to have a dove hunt that they've had for a decade or more now. Then there's also, to set a precedent, there was actually not only the RV park someone tried to put there, but where Mr. and Miss Jackson lived, I think there was, as far as I know, the Mennonite church, I think it's the people tied in with the country cover, wanted to put, I believe, a church there, and I know they wanted to put an antique, I think in a some kind of strip mall there, which is also a business, which this church has a business, a little bit different, but it has a business, and they want to rezone it for such. The Mennonite church, as far as I know, still does not have a church, and they were told they could not, so they went and sold the land. So that kind of sets a precedent in the area. Thank you for your time, so I'll go there.
Thank you. Next on the list is Barbie Kelly.
Oh, sorry, that was me.
Oh. All right. So that is everyone that's on the list. Do you have any rebuttal to, you've got 5 minutes to.
Yeah, I'd like to take the opportunity to talk again. So I want to thank everyone for presenting their concerns, get a chance to talk about some of the things that were brought up. I think the first thing I'd like to bring up, and I'm representing the church and their entire congregation, and Pastor Scott and everyone here today respectfully are members of the community. That's why they're here today, they're present. And so I want to make sure that that's been stated. And you know, this location for the property is an ideal location for those members of the community because of its proximity to the existing Hope Inn and their congregation. And they do want to expand their congregation, and this is their opportunity to do that. So respectfully, I wanted to make sure that I represented that, even though I myself am not the pastor, and I'm not one of the community members here today. Additionally, I wanted to point out that the parcel is within the rural communities character area, and as such, a house of worship is an allowable use under that category. And additionally, the existing AR zoning, a house of worship is allowed under that zoning under special exceptions. And the reason we're pursuing the rezoning is for the additional secondary uses. The primary building, which we've located towards the center of the site, is that house of worship. And the additional 12 small cabins around the site are those secondary uses, in addition to that ministry building, which is for the teaching purposes. I also wanted to say that the large building will be located at the center of the site to help mitigate the concerns of the neighbors, and as well as providing that 100-foot buffer to try to eliminate those concerns of the neighbors as far as their disturbance as much as possible. And as well, the site will remain largely, I think 70%, if I remember correctly, as a natural area and open space and those sorts of things. And so we're trying to mitigate a lot of the concerns of the neighbors as such. I know someone mentioned the trees. The plan with the trees would be to remain the exterior perimeter, the 100-foot buffer as it is today, and in addition to that, to provide fast-growing evergreen trees where they're needed to help provide that screening and not disturb the neighbors. And then someone brought up the question of how long would the zoning last, and these things that I'm bringing out today to help mitigate those concerns, are they still going to exist down the line? And the answer to that is that the meeting today and the site plan, if approved, would be the requirement for the property going forward up until the point that someone would, if anyone would pursue another rezoning, and then you would have the opportunity to have another meeting like this to explain your reasons for not wanting those changes. And so to kind of answer that question, it would be that site plan. If any changes were proposed that were largely different from the site plan that we presented today, we would have to go back through this exact same process to make those changes. And I know there was a lot of concerns about the stormwater as well. I just wanted to emphasize that any stormwater generated by the site would be captured in stormwater inlets, gutters, downspouts, etc., all those sorts of those facilities, and directed to the proposed stormwater pond, where it would not only have the flows reduced, but they would also be treated to reduce those pollutants through the use of that pond. So I hope that kind of answers a lot of the concerns that were brought up. And I guess kind of the same thing with the noise levels being brought up. You know, the noise would be subject to any Upson County noise ordinances that are under the municipal code. And I think that's about all I have. I tried to take notes of what everyone had brought up and address them to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to close?
I had signed up on that list, was my name. I was out in the hallway, it was one of the seats.
What is your name?
Chad Clay, 2303 Pickett Road. I signed on both lists to make sure I got a chance to speak.
Yeah, I don't have it on this one, but, okay, we'll let you. Doug, do you have an extra?
He was on the list last one.
Yeah, did you sign it tonight?
Yeah.
I mean, I see you on this one.
I signed two lists that were up there tonight.
Okay, must be the, okay. If you'll just come sign this.
Yeah, sure.
And then,
Thank you for your
no problem.
accommodations, I appreciate it. Sorry, y'all, I'm not a very good instruction follower, I guess. Not sure what I signed.
It may have just been the attendance.
I signed twice, so I might have signed the
Yeah.
attendance twice, I'm not sure.
No, you signed this one once, the other one once, and then this one.
I don't know.
Okay, that's all right.
There you are.
You'll just state your name and address for me?
Yep. Chad Clave, 2303 Pickett Road here in Thomaston. Actually, our address is in the top left corner of your little screen there. That entire AR mark where it goes on the northwest side of the property. Some concerns that my wife and I have to do with some of the air quality, as far as my wife has a lot of health issues, and so any burning or any campfires or anything like that would be detrimental to her health. So that's a new concern that we have when we really thought about this. Also, the clearing of the land, if this get approved, we just can't have them burning all that stuff. I mean, it'll kill her, basically, is what would happen. So, I mean, she has to be able to breathe. She has anaphylaxis, to not be able to breathe, it's a bad thing. But my bigger concern, when we talked about for the health purposes, that was our number one concern. And then when I really think about what's going on, it changes the entire landscape of that area. We moved here. We found a spot that the Lord planted us, and we love it here. It's peaceful, it's quiet, it's, there's not a whole lot of activity that happens in our backyard. We shoot directly to the south of our property, and I understand that we'll have to kind of revisit all of those things. But, when I love the fact that it's a church. I mean, there could be a lot worse neighbors a person could have. But at the same time, it takes a lot of, there's a lot of concerns there with the number of traffic, the number of areas, all the other things that are there. But truthfully, our main concern has to do with my wife's health. And in the event that it's approved, we just need to have a plan in place on how they're going to care for her and take care of clearing the land and whatever they're going to do, because there's a whole lot of trees and a whole lot of things there that they have to take care of, and especially in the right way, so my wife's health is not at all negatively impacted in any of this. But again, it changes the landscape, and I'm not for it, I'm not against it. I'm just simply stating it really changes the landscape on what the AR is. As the one gentleman said, if you look all the way around, you have agricultural, residential. I get the fact that we've got the restaurant over there and whatever that other building is across the road. But that's a huge change to the design of what this property actually is. And so that's where our thought process was, and my wife and I's conversations went that way. And again, we're not going to stand in the way of what the Lord does. If the Lord blesses and provides them the property, praise the Lord, we figure it out and we move on. Honestly, like you to consider the fact that, there's a lot of other places that could potentially be where this is built that may not be surrounded by agricultural residential. That's all I have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Okay.
The timer.
All right. That being said, we have no one else that has signed up to speak. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Questions, comments, discussion from anyone? What you've heard?
Do we have anything from Doug?
I didn't know if he wanted to.
Nothing additional. You've heard my report for 2 meetings, and right, the only thing that we had was new is the information that you've already heard addressed. So I don't have any further comments unless, I guess just generally, if you choose to recommend approval, whatever that vote may be, obviously you want to consider whatever conditions. Now, as you heard alluded to, in the PM zoning, there's already conditions. One being that whatever the final plan is that's accepted by the Board of Commissioners, pretty much it's sort of set in concrete, because if they want to make any changes, if they're minor changes, they come back to you. If they're major changes, they go back to the Board of Commissioners. Now, as the zoning administrator, I may have to make some interpretation of what's major and minor, maybe some detailed conditions, what are setbacks from buildings. I mean, some of the things that are in common rezonings we don't have referenced here yet. Now, a lot of the information you've heard is going to be permit level, and there's not really anything we're ever going to do about that, because this is the planning level. The permit level is going to tell us where the septic tanks go, how big they're going to be. They're going to have to do a study to determine that. How big the stormwater retention is going to be, where it's going to be. That's all permit level information. We just need the sort of gross information, and I think you've probably, after 3 meetings, heard most of the planning level information. So that's the only thing. Certainly, if you get any conditions in mind, if you're of a mind to recommend approval, obviously, if you're recommending denial, you don't need any conditions, you're just recommending denial. But again, this is the purpose of the PM, this is a unique and one-of-a-kind zoning for this development. So you don't have the traditional setbacks and building separation and where do we put setbacks for a shed that they want to put in for the tractors, those sort of things. So if we don't have those things included in the final plan approved by the Board of Commissioners, if they approve it, we may have to come up with some of the more detailed language of those sorts of conditions. That's it, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any discussion?
As Mr. Doug said, a lot of the concerns will be dealt with through permitting, that the state and everything would require to handle the runoff and handle the catch basin pond and all those things. You know, there's certain regulations that they'd be required to take care of those runoff situations. That's not something that's ours. From the last staff report, I believe you recommended approval with some conditions, and I just wanted to look at those conditions that you had, and it shows, as shown as a conceptual master plan, there should be a 50 feet permanent landscaping buffer and 100 feet building setback, and the internal road system would be considered as local streets and have to meet that minimum 20-foot pavement. With those conditions, would there be any other conditions that somebody would? Thoughts?
No, I guess one of the things that I heard and just, so they're talking about public water, but not sewer. So septic, it'll be a septic system.
Septic system and
For 72,000 square feet of a septic system.
Yeah. Good point.
How is that going to work? I mean, what? I guess my question is, do you have a plan in place for how you're going to handle 72,000 square feet of septic?
We haven't reached like design level for the septic yet, but there is, a significant amount of open space shown on the site plan, and we would intend to put it in the open space. Obviously, it'd be, as mentioned, on the permitting level to determine that the soils and everything are adequate, and we have that adequate level of space to provide it.
And Madam Chair, just to remind you of Legacy Ranch, that's a 300-bed dormitory. 300, there's no 300 beds on this property. So, and they had to do, I think we're 2 years past approval, and they've maybe in the last 6 months finally gotten their EPD approval for their wastewater. So, yeah, it's a long process, and obviously, I think that,
Would this follow the same thing, though?
Yes.
well, it'd have to go through the same permit,
Yes,
right?
environmental system.
And I can't generate, we don't have generation numbers for both to compare, but the one thing we do have is that's a 300-bed dorm. This is 12 cabins, 8 people.
I'm not necessarily worried about the cabins, I'm worried about you have 72,000 square feet under roof excluding the cabins.
How about the
That you've
ground?
gotta,
How about the ground?
that you've gotta have,
Excuse me.
Well, again, that's the permit level information that, you know, it's potentially possible that if for some reason percolation and that type of treatment doesn't work, you may have to cut back the project if EPD determines through the permitting you can only generate X amount of wastewater. Either that or they're gonna have to find a different treatment method, and they can do that too. There are things called package plants. I don't know if they want to go into that level of expense, but you can even.
That falls under permitting and
That would be
environmental.
permitting.
An environmental issue that they would have to meet those plans.
yeah, no,
Everybody around there is on well water. We don't know how that's gonna affect our well water.
I guess I'm asking the question because I don't. I think that's a question we have to look at and consider. I'm not saying that's a one way or the other, but that's something we have to consider, is how does that affect the neighbors? How does that potentially affect the neighbors? I don't know. I'm not that, but I know that I don't think we're going to find anywhere else out there that's going to be 72,000 square feet under roof that has to have septic to support that.
Madam Chairman,
I mean,
But, hang on.
how many bathrooms are in this, internally in the church facility?
Yeah, I don't know that we know the number of bathrooms, but as part of the application for the water availability, we did calculate the use based off of the various components of the site for the water, and the sewer use would be similar to the water use, obviously. So I don't know exactly the number of the bathrooms per se, but based off of the size and the use of the buildings and such, you know, it's 72,000 square feet of space, but that doesn't, you know, it's not like for like, obviously, on the sewer use. You know, like a house generates more sewer use than
sure.
a church would, of course.
Yeah, but my point is, you're not, 72,000 square feet, how, is a lot of people, can accommodate a lot of people. Is it going to be capacity every day of the week? Probably not. But if it were, what does that
I
look like?
understand what you're asking, and to answer your question, I guess as part of our application, we've included numbers on the water availability, so you can look at that as far as our anticipated generation of the sewer, and our parking counts as well. Our traffic generation kind of includes that information to the, you know, the best of our ability to calculate that. So we're definitely doing our due diligence.
Any other questions?
No, maybe.
Okay. If that's the case, do I have a motion either way?
I'll go ahead and make my motion. I have a number of concerns also. One of them's traffic. We got 400 plus parking spaces. That doesn't include the traffic from maybe delivery trucks, UPS, FedEx, or Amazon. We just don't know the impact, full impact of traffic. However, we know there's going to be an impact to the traffic. Activities, outdoors activities. We don't know what type of outdoor activities is going to be there. We don't know how long they're going to last. Into the night or what? Just don't know. I've heard the word character area. Yes. You know, if this was just a church, I would be on board for it without a second thought. But when we start adding industrial buildings with it, then I think that cuts into the rural area that we're supposed to protect at some time. I just don't think this is the best location for this project. That's my motion to deny.
Okay. Do I have a second? Thoughts?
I'll make a motion second.
Okay. All in favor of the motion to deny for the reasons Mr. Hilton gave? All in favor of denial?
Aye.
Aye. 3-1.
3-1? 3-1. Therefore, motion passes. That will be the recommendation that goes to the Board of Commissioners in a few meetings. All those of you who see the big yellow signs, those yellow signs will now disappear, and the yellow signs will come back 2 weeks before the Board of Commissioners meeting. Of course, this is the recommendation, 3-1, to go to the Board of Commissioners. The Board of Commissioners will make the final decision. And it'll be July something. I don't know exactly what that date is, but it will be a July date.
All right. Great. Thank you guys for being here. I want to give, because I'm pretty sure the mass majority are going to leave now. We can give a few minutes for everybody that wants to leave so that we can carry on. We've got a couple of other items on our agenda.
There's one member recusing himself. So what? He was the yes.
All right, moving on, item 5 is the application for rezoning REZ 2024-04, 2585 US Highway 19, the Storehouse Church, Scott Knight is trustee, parcel 041120. This is a rezoning request to go from AR to M1 for an air conditioning company. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing for?
I make a motion to open the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, so public hearing is open. Mr. Basilisi, are you here to talk about? Sure. Okay, okay. So state your name and address, and we'll have 5 minutes.
My name's Donnie Basilisi. I'm the president, owner of A&B Heating and Cooling Company. We became interested in this property when it came up for sale. And we reviewed the property, looked at it, and we thought it'd be a great place to move our business. I've talked to a lot of landowners all around there. Can I?
Sure.
So, Johnny, can you pass it on? As far as the building itself, there's going to be minor modifications. We're going to keep the main structure of the building. We have about 25 vehicles, about 35 employees that will be coming in and out of there. Yes, there will be trucks coming in and out off the side road of Harrell Road. I've had people ask, some of the people that I talked to, as far as all the landowners and everybody connected to me, want to know about our trash and what we're going to do with our stuff we tear out and whatever. And I'd like to pass this around too. If you notice in the upper right-hand corner, there's about 2 acres or so back in the trees there that we're going to clean out a certain portion of it. I think it's about 1 acre to be exact. And we're going to park all our trucks and junk back there in the back of that area back there. And we do have dumpsters and that kind of stuff, so they will go back there in that tree line area. And also on that list is that landowners that either border that property, directly in front of it, or directly behind it. And I tried to talk with everybody that I was aware of that was there. And I tried to I made them aware of what we were doing, what we were trying to do. We're going to put in the parking lot, because naturally I have employees, we have a lot of customers that come in and out of our building. We have contractors, engineers, architects, so we do have folks in and out of the building. But it's sitting on 5 acres. I live within rock throwing distance there. My property kind of looks in front of it. So, you know, it's going to be clean and well kept, and I think we make a good neighbor, you know, for everybody out there. Like we do have trucks. Well, we do get trailer trucks in there, probably 2, maybe 1 or 2 a day sometimes. Like I said, we got 25 vehicles that come in and out. Our biggest traffic would be between like 7:30 to 8:30 in the mornings. But a lot of them guys, some of them leave at 7, some of them leave at 8:30, some of them leave at 9. So all it'll be staggered. So it really won't be a big traffic issue out there at all. As far as noise, we don't do any manufacturing other than making some sheet metal items that we use on people's houses and commercial buildings. So we really don't do any manufacturing as that goes. I had one gentleman ask me why was it being zoned M1, and I told him I think Mr. Curry told us that we had to be M1. So that's the reason that I know of. And of course, I was on the other side of that bench one time, so I know, but I know it has light manufacturing. So all manufacturing we do is just sheet metal items, you know, for people's homes and people's businesses. We don't do any major manufacturing. We pick up we dispose of our metal products. Excuse me, the company comes every 2 to 3 weeks. They clean out all the metal. You'll never see it back there. It's all disposed of. We have certain federal regulations we have to go by as far as reclaiming the refrigerants and all the chemicals and whatever else. We won't really do any washing there of products. We won't have any chemicals there. Mostly the building is, that building's 7,000, around 7,200 square foot, which gives me about 1,500 more square foot than what I'm at. We in multiple buildings on Crawley Street. This will let me put all of my stuff under one building in one process. All of our tractors, our front end loaders, our stuff like that will be on this back parcel, back there behind the trees. So you won't see it. Some of the people we've talked to said we need to put tree borders between the back neighbor and coming up Harrell Road up to the driveway. There's 2 big trees on the corner right there that I'd really like to keep and not have to cut them down to try to put evergreens or something in there. So as far as the construction, it will take about 6 to 8 weeks for the parking lots and the general construction. We're basically putting 3 roll-up doors on one end of the property and 2 roll-up doors on the other side and putting in a parking lot. We're gonna enclose that front portico, put some offices in the front of there. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Thank you.
Move on.
Okay, next on the list is Steve Sadler.
Hey, I'm Steve Sadler. I live at 1060 Laramie Drive. I didn't check either for or against. Mine is just cautiously concerned. My property does not adjoin the property in question. I'm across the street. There's a property across the street. I'm behind that property in Cheryl Jean, the back part of Cheryl Jean Estates. My concern is basically going to M1 zoning for that area, because I'm thinking there's not M1 zoning in that area for miles. I didn't get with Mr. Doug. I meant to. That's the concern for that area, because if you look around the area, it's all residential, and that will be M1 in the middle of residential. Again, I respect the Don. I have nothing against this facility at all. I've talked to him about this project, and my concerns are not related to him at all. It's just strictly related to the zoning issue of going to M1 for this particular area. And a lot of that comes from my recent experience with commercial property adjacent to my property, which is the storage buildings. The First Choice Storage, I will refrain from naming the owner of that building. I came here 2.5 years ago, voiced my concerns with that particular property. Had some conditions put on that property, which all the conditions I wanted was not put on that property, some were. To this day, those conditions haven't been met. Mr. Courier is in the process with me trying to get those conditions met by the owner. He has been non-committal to do the conditions put on that particular property. And that's my concern. So if you decide to do M1 in this area, you need to have strict conditions put on that property to protect future potential properties in that area going M1, and if this property is sold. I know Mr. Facility has told me that it's a family business, and I fully believe him, and I have no reason not to. But unfortunately, you can't base your decision on that. I mean, you base your decision on the property and how it's zoned. I do apologize. So getting back to the commercial property that's adjacent to my property, I won't go into detail, but one of the main conditions was protecting the tree lines on both sides. If you go by that property, you'll see at night, it looks like a landing pad for airplanes. Well, this is right on the backside. A lot of that lighting is shaded by 80% by the tree growth. Unfortunately, that tree growth is dying. And one of the conditions was to continuously maintain the trees. That has not been done. So my concern is conditions on the property, and make sure there's some accountability built into those conditions to make sure that the property stays where it is and what this facility wants to do when he has it, and for future maybe potential owners of that property if he decides to sell, and potential owners of other properties that want to go in that area. So I would ask that when you look at the ordinances for M1, it's always a minimum listed. I would ask you to go to the max. If there's a fence that's required, a 6-foot fence, go 8 foot. If there's a green space, if there's not green space, make sure there's green space. Make sure that there's no space there that can be encroached upon by that particular building. I looked at the ordinances. I would say that I'm a little concerned, they're a little lacking. I think from when you have a M1 beside a residential, it's really not spelled out as far as what needs to be done. So that's the reason I'm asking, if you go this route, you need to put special conditions or strict conditions on that property. Again, it has nothing to do with Mr. Casillas and his petition or his business. It's strictly about the zoning in that area. The zoning in that area is residential. And some may say that it's going commercial. Well, it's going light commercial, but again, there's not an M1 designation in that area. Thank you.
All right. Next is Tony Murphy.
Thank you all for hearing me. My name is Tony Murphy. I live at 52 Harold Road in Thomaston. I live the second house when you turn off at the church out there on Harold Road. I've been living there for 21 years. I'm one of the people, like a lot of my heard today, I was born and raised in Upson County in 1945. I'm 78 years old, and I finally found a home at a good place, in a residential area where people are gonna keep it safe, keep it quiet, keep it safe for the kids. I moved out there and I built a big house, so I got room for my kids and grandkids to come out there. They used my driveway, I got a long driveway. They had accidents, just close accidents at the road every day, because over the years, the traffic, and Johnny Dawson lives out there on that road, he knows the other end of it. He knows how the traffic has gotten over the years. All the people coming home, they take a right there, and then they get 60 miles an hour before they come out of the house. But the traffic gets real bad in the evenings. And I had to sit out there and watch kids from the road, that's because they can't get close to the road. And with this business going out there, it's gonna put it out there all day long, no matter when they're there. It's just too many vans and repair vehicles, tractor trailer trucks, and all the people going back and forth to Griffin and Pike County and everywhere else. The road is bad. And when the whole thing started, nobody came to me. My property line is 200 feet from the property line of this property. There's 1 yard across mine till you get to the property. I've had no problem when they built that church out there. My opinion is, if God wants to build a church, He can build it anywhere He wants to. I had no objections to it. I thought that church would be there forever, so everything was good, but now they didn't make it for some reason or other. It wasn't God's will, I guess, but they're apparently leaving, or already left. Now we're stuck with a position where we're going to maybe change the zoning on it to an M1 zoning for light business or whatever they do. I don't understand all that. All I know is there's going to be a business up there. We already had a few problems with the church because the property is real flat. There's no runoff from the highway, and there's no ditch on this side of the highway where the church is. So they put a settling pond in the back of it and drained it up at the back for the water wouldn't run off down across one of those yard there. But make a long story short, when it rains real heavy, the little pond fills up all the way to the top and it runs over. When it runs over, it runs down the ditch, stops the ditches up because it takes all the trash, leaves, limbs, and everything else down, stops the sewers up, and it runs out in the yard. It happens to me 2 or 3 times a year since I've been living there. But church couldn't fix the settling pond. They could never do anything to it. So you just have to get out there and clean that yourself. But the water fills the culverts up, runs over my yard and runs across the highway, of course, raining. That takes 2 or 3 days sometimes. But like I said, we've been living out there for a long time, and we got somebody now, I understand, I don't know a lot about it, what I've learned about the whole deal that's happened yesterday and today. We got a business in town. I was told that the county is always looking at ways to extend the county's tax base. More businesses coming in. And if you're going to put something with the church, it needs to be a business that's going to increase the tax base in Thomaston. A new place. Somewhere else. Put an office there of some kind. It's real quiet. There's no problems with the noise and the big trucks and tractors and dumpster loading and all kind of crap all week long out there in a place where we thought it was going to be quiet and surreal out there. That's not going to happen if this happens. If it just rezoned. The church, like I say, was there for a long time. It didn't work out, but we always hoped it would and prayed it would. But putting another business out there, I'm not opposed to all businesses, don't get me wrong. But I'm a mechanical man. I got an engineering degree, electrical engineering. And I've worked in stuff like this my whole life with HVAC and everything. And I know what equipment and what goes on with cleaning stuff and moving stuff, all the chemicals you use, this, that, and the other, Freon, all the stuff you use and all the storage. He's got a junkyard behind his business over there. It's just box cars back there with stuff where he's storing stuff, and all that stuff is going to be behind my house back in the woods with forklifts and all that's going on. It's going to be a lot of noise all the time. Noise, the place was built for a home, like there's not going to be a home anymore. And I got a perfect solution to the problem. I don't know why. I was told that they wanted to move out there. I don't know why. Just
Time.
Got plenty of time.
5 minutes.
You've used your 5 minutes.
Got to make one more comment.
Just please close it.
Okay, the person who wants to buy this property lives directly across the road from it. He's got open property acres of it on the right-hand side and the left-hand side of his place. He wants to build a place out there so he can walk across the road to work every day.
Okay,
and mess
Mr.
up the whole neighborhood.
Nope, you're
It ain't
good.
good.
Thank you. Chad Cleve. Is he still here? No,
He's one
he's
signed.
one signed the wrong
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the second time. He's
All
trying
right,
to find what we
all right. With that, we have no one else on the list signed up to speak for or against. And that, if that's the case, then do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Courier, can we get your presentation, please?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is a summary of the staff report that you received in your packet. I'm not going to hit all the details, just the highlights. As you've heard, the property owner is actually Storehouse Church. Mr. Vasilisi is a potential buyer, but the current lease by record owner is the Storehouse Church, with Scott Knight being one of the trustees. As you heard, this is a rezoning from AR, Agriculture Residential, to M1. Specifically, and here you'll see at the bottom of this particular page, when we look at the zoning districts, they have a list of all the purposes for that, the list of uses that are acceptable. And under the M1, you have plumbing shop, other contractor, including open storage of materials when located in the rear yard. So what this tells me is that whether you're a plumber, you're an electrician, you're HVAC, I don't know, maybe you're a stonemason, you're one of those contractors, quote unquote, M1 is where you belong. There's no other zoning district that has this as a list or similar to it. So whenever an applicant comes in, one of the things they ask me is, what's the best zoning for what I want to do? And M1, based on my understanding of what the proposal was, is the best zoning based on the list, as we currently have it in our ordinances. As you heard, it's 5 acres. There's a little over 7,000 square feet in the current Storehouse church building. There's some slightly conflicting information out there about exactly what the square footage is, but I would say comfortably it's somewhere in that 7,000, 7,500 square feet anyway. It is located in the north side area on the west side of 19, just north of Harold Road. It's at that intersection. This property is also on the Gateway Corridor overlay, so any signage is going to have to meet the signage for the Gateway overlay. Landscaping, that 30 feet that you've heard in other cases, we're going to require that be along the frontage. So that'll be part of that gateway. So this is really almost a double zoning because it's on the Gateway Corridor. They'll be subject to the Gateway Corridor requirements too. As you see, the predominant zoning in the area is AR. The residential components, there's R2. As you heard alluded to, the warehouses that we had a few years ago, there is some C2 to the southeast on the other side of US Highway 19. You'll see that in the zoning map that will come to in a moment. Again, the current zoning is AR. You've got the description of what that means in the zoning ordinance, and M1 and what the purpose for that would be. Also reference to the comprehensive plan. This is what it means to have a comprehensive plan, what the character area map is supposed to be. Current character area map in this case is active agriculture, meant to establish, preserve, promote, maintain, and enhance areas for commercial agriculture, farming, livestock, related land uses consistent with maintaining the land resources of the county. A key purpose for this designation is to protect and preserve prime farmland for continued ag uses. AR is recognized as one of the compatible zoning districts. You also have goals and strategies in the comp plan. The pertinent ones are here. We have the standard review standards. Every time you and a Board of Commissioners look at a particular case like this, these are the standards that you're supposed to use in evaluating it. In terms of the use itself, This is, as you heard, a sparsely developed area, low-intensity residential with that limited amount of commercial across their US Highway 19, which is mini warehouses solely. The primary commercial area for unincorporated area is Atwater Road and south. So if you think of US 19 as it's currently developed, this isn't the place for commercial or even light industrial. We do have the mini warehouses, and that's it. And at least one of those two was a long time ago, probably pre-zoning was established there, but the other one was just a few years ago, as you heard alluded to, that did go through this process and through the Board of Commissioners. As I explained before, this is a light industrial use just based on the list we have. There's really no plan that I can think of, whether it's the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan that says this is where we want to put light industrial uses or heavy commercial. Whether you want to call it a heavy commercial use or light industrial, this isn't that place. Will it be one day? I don't know. That my crystal ball is not working today, but this is not the time. As you heard described, this is a residential area. The heavy commercial starts with Atwater Road south into the city, and it's certainly been stated in the past that we want to try to concentrate our development, our commercial development in the city and towards the city. And strip commercialization is not a good approach to US 19. If you think of some of our other highways, the one that comes to mind immediately is Woodland Highway 36 West. It's beautiful and it's not lined with commercial. It's very wooded and rural the way it's supposed to be. It's not inevitable that you take your major corridors, your state highways, and have to make them strip commercial. I would hope we'd learn from the 80s and 90s that that's not a good approach to doing this, and this certainly would be a spot zoning for industrial use or a heavy commercial, whatever you might want to call it. The zoning itself, again, we talked about this being an active ag character area with very few C2 in the area, which is probably premature also. And I explained earlier why contractor uses fall within the M1. We have the other evaluation criteria, effect on adjacent nearby properties. Again, this is not the type of development currently in the area. Even if you take in consideration the mini warehouses, that's not a heavy traffic area, certainly not a light industrial. It's very passive. You actually don't have a lot of traffic for mini warehouses. I'm not saying that that's the appropriate place for mini warehouses either, but they're there, and some of them have been there for a very long time. We are told in terms of economic use that that church has not been used since 2017. That was in the application. 4, I talked about the comp plan. 5, I'm unaware of any other existing conditions for or against the proposal. Again, in terms of the length of vacancy, we do have that 7,000 square foot plus building, but we're told that it hasn't been occupied for some years. In terms of, exact health endangerment, welfare, effect on insurance rates, overtaxing, we don't really have the information. And again, we already heard testimony from the potential owner that the type of use and the chemicals they use probably wouldn't be major. I'm not an expert on HVAC to know that. We certainly know there are some chemicals involved in that process. Following all that evaluation, staff recommends denial. My reasons are for it being, the rezoning being inconsistent with the character area. We don't have in any plan the idea that we're going to strip commercialize US 19. That's what this would start, especially in this area, or continue it with the mini warehouses. I would not expect this to be a commercial node at Harrell Road and US 19. At least not that's in any plan right now. And again, I think that your review standards, the proposal is inconsistent with standards 1 and 4. Of course, as we know, it's your job as the Planning Commission to listen to all this evidence and make your evaluation and make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, whether it's approval, denial, deferral, withdrawal without prejudice, reduction of the land area, a different zoning, etc. That is now your task to make that recommendation. Here's the aerial photograph. You see on the east side immediately the frontage, you've got the church surrounded by this grassed area. And then it's connected to this heavily wooded area back here, which you heard would be some of the storage and the vehicle storage back there. Again, you can see residential here. I believe this is actually another church over here. Residential further north. You got residential along Harrell Road, across the road, and down here you do have the mini warehouses to the southeast. Here's the zoning that we're talking about. You can see we got AR along Harrell, across US 19, and then even you're getting down, as you heard earlier, into the Cheryl Jean Estates area where the dominant zoning down there is R2. You do have the mini warehouses here, zone C2, and then you're familiar, this is a long before you were on the board or I was here, this C2C down here, which nothing's ever been developed on. So you can see dominant AR, R2. And these will be the pictures of the buildings and the sign. So this is looking at the front of the building from the US 19 or for the east side looking west. This is the south side of the building looking north. And you can see, I'm not real familiar with this drainage, but you can see there is a built-up ridge on the back. I'm going to guess this is something related to that stormwater issue that we've got where I guess it builds up, and when they built the church they must have recognized it, so it's a little low here, and then there's some sort of a berm here. I guess that was their answer for the stormwater retention on this particular site. You can see it is fairly flat in this grassed area. Side of the building again. This is the rear, back side, the west side. And this is on the north side looking towards 19. All right, now this is from the front of the property looking north on US Highway 19. This is what we see immediately across the street. And to the south across 19. You can see the mini warehouse, you can barely see them right over here. And that concludes the staff report, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I have a question. On the entrance, would it be possible to have the entrance coming from the highways to the county road, keep the traffic off the county road?
Yeah, me. Well, we haven't checked with the state, but that will require a turning lane, and that's real expensive. And so, no, to be honest with you, we have to talk to the state or whatever. And all our traffic's within like 50 feet of the highway. It never gets down anywhere further down the road than that. I mean, if it's 50 feet from the main highway to the driveway, I mean, we get no further than that. That's as far as we go.
Any other questions?
That's the only question I had, yeah.
You guys have questions?
I don't.
In that case, do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the rezoning request.
Do I have a second?
Do you have conditions that you want?
I would like to add on that back section back there, that it needs to be totally enclosed or fenced in the area that you're gonna be putting any old units, debris, trash, possibly even maybe a double fence up a property line fence that would protect the neighbors, but then your area where your reclaimed stuff is gonna be even more secluded, so it really can't be seen by the neighbors. I think that would be my request on that back section.
Do I have a second with that? Or do I have another motion with, do I have a second first with those conditions?
Obviously, you'd have to spell out what's going to be in the gateway if it is approved. If that's got to be spelled out as conditions in there.
We'd have to meet the gateway conditions automatically.
That's part of the permit process. when it goes.
There's a gateway corridor ordinance.
That's right.
That you have to meet.
That's correct.
So if I don't have a
Do you
second,
have any thoughts?
I guess I would like, my thoughts are a buffer, a X number of feet buffer, that the wooded tree line is maintained across that back part from your neighbors at a minimum. I suggest a fence as well.
I'll make a screened fence, something, not just a fence, but something that, you know, of the nature that the neighbors back there wouldn't be potentially looking at. I mean, we know there's gonna be, you're gonna have this or that that's there that might be unsightly, but we would want to protect the neighbors as well as possible from that.
If we,
So do I have,
with those conditions, with the conditions that there's a privacy fence, you know, buffers, like you're
a
requesting.
wooded buffer, maintain a wooded,
A wooded
how
buffer,
big of a,
a wooded buffer,
how-
privacy fence.
what number of feet? I mean, we can't just say a wooded buffer, that could be one tree.
Yeah.
I'm talking out loud here as far as giving some of my thoughts. I think there needs to be, as noted on here, the buffer from the road at a minimum that blocks that first house. I'm not saying that's all, I'm not saying that's all that I think there needs to be. I'm not saying that it has to be, I'm just throwing those suggestions out for discussion.
Well, I think your wooded area, or really everybody else's property is wooded around there, so they chose to clear to their property line as long as they took you know, a screened fence of sorts, something that protected the view if the neighbors chose to clear their property.
So, not having a second.
I'm trying to get a clarity on what requirements we want if we do it.
What's the plans for the runoff?
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, no, I get it.
If I'm gonna give a second to it, I wanna know.
Well, I think the
There's gotta be
question of
some
runoff
added,
is a permitting
you're saying you want something
situation.
added to
I'm
it.
saying we need to make sure of it's something that that we've looked at the runoff, that if there is a runoff issue, that's gonna be something that's gonna be taken, could be looked at and taken care of.
Do you want more information from him?
Yeah, I
Do
mean,
you want
if
site plans?
if there's a problem, yeah, well, we need that, you know?
Do you want to,
I mean, we need to know if that's gonna, you know, what that situation is, if it's a problem there, before it's sold. You know, if that's gonna be something in the change, we're gonna change it to M1, that those properties around it are not gonna be affected, you know, or what they're being affected now will be taken care of with a change of hands.
Can I address that? Okay. According to the drawings that we were given, Scanlon, I think Johnny's familiar with him, but Scanlon did the soil conservation, all that stuff. He did that when the building was built for David Tyler. That's the reason for the retention pond. And I think Ms. Morgan, that was done when the building was built and permitted because they had every plan to put in the parking lot. Todd Albritton is the architect. He was in touch with Mr. Scanlon to get a copy of the report. So far, we have been put hands on, but the plans that were approved by the county showed that there was a landscaping, soil and erosion test done on the property, and therefore the retention pond. I don't have the report. We tried to get it, but like I say, on the master plans that the county signed off on, it does bring up Scanlon engineer, I think's their name,
Yeah.
but they did do the study and they did do the report. I just don't have it.
All I'm saying is from neighbors just saying that it isn't working, is what I'm saying. You know,
Well,
if it,
yeah, and my question is that a true retention pond? I mean, I know where this is, I've gone by it many a times, but
It's a
is
retention
it
facility, it's not a true pond,
pond?
but
I mean,
obviously there's that berm you can see in a lower area.
right,
It's not a
it's
traditional
not the
retention.
traditional, right, okay.
There is a pond.
Yes.
It is a
There is a pond.
Yes.
It is a retention pond because it has a little, the culvert and all there for it to drain through. And I will say this, we have never been issued any kind of warning or anything for that thing overflowing. Never seen it overflow. Never had
I've been
any
there
issue.
since 2010, and I've never had a complaint from a neighbor or anybody. I've never seen it overflow.
Okay.
I'm not saying he hasn't seen it, but I've never seen
And
it.
we've never received a warning.
And I've never seen him receive nothing.
Madam Chair,
from
we need to
anybody.
identify who's speaking.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
A neighbor or
Yeah.
the county.
yeah.
The pond was built back there with the
Oops.
church where they had ground. There's a lot of water
okay,
that's
okay.
sinking the ground normally.
Okay,
They're
okay.
planning on paving the whole place.
Please
There's
let-
gonna be a lot
Hang on.
more.
Please let us have our discussion, okay? If we want to
Okay.
call on somebody, we will, but otherwise, let us have our discussion. I will tell you, my concern is the M1. That, I agree. I don't think this is the place for M1. Nothing against that business. I just think we're spot zoning M1 when there's not another one within miles of that, or give or take. One day, I'm sure we'll probably be there. I don't think we are today. I think that's why our designation is like it is for today, for right now. So I personally have conflict with that.
are you recommending that we deny the change in?
If you're looking at me to make a recommendation, my recommendation would be to deny it because of the M1 zoning and where this piece of property sits in relation to the character maps.
With the character map and a comprehensive plan and everything else is not
That-
fit, not a fit at this time.
At this time. That would be mine. So if you want to take that as a motion, does anyone have a second to that?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor of denial based on the reasoning I gave of M1 not fitting into that character map and current land use? All in favor of that motion to deny?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
4-1.
4-1. Thank you. As we said at the last case, this is a recommendation that goes to the Board of Commissioners, one of the July meetings. Again, the signs will come down that are on the property now, the signs will go back up when we have that July date, and at that July meeting, the Board of Commissioners will make the final decision. But this will be the recommendation.
All right. Moving to item B, 5B is zoning and subdivision ordinance amendments discussion. Consultant Lee Walton, if you'll give us a second for.
Exodus.
Nothing against you.
How does everyone not know that our proposed changes will solve all the problems?
We'll find out later.
One wonders.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I will be brief, in the interest of time and sanity and everything else. Who's clicking? How are we?
Either there you find something.
You gotta
I gotta plug in. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna be as brief as I hoped. I was thinking it was queued up. Plug into that cord there, right?
No, if you just got your thumb drive, I
Thumb
can
drive.
plug in.
I do have thumb drive. Where I plug in?
No, I've got it right here. You just tell me when to click.
Yeah, there's the PDF file.
Could you close that door?
Sorry about that. All right, so I can talk through
Thank you, Mr. Thurston.
I can talk through sort of the purpose and intent and basics of this while this is coming up on the screen. It's just a little background. As has been referenced, I'm Lee Walton, planning consultant, project manager with WSP, and we have been on-call planning consultant to the county for a few years now. And we authored the comprehensive plan update that was adopted last year, and you'll probably remember some meetings related to that. So after the comprehensive plan was finalized and reviewed and approved by the state and adopted by the Board of Commissioners, we were then asked, okay, what do we do now? Now, as you know, the comprehensive plan is used, referenced every time you make a recommendation here, and appropriately so, and that's one of its functions. It has other functions as well. And so one aspect of implementing the comprehensive plan is or can be taking a look at the zoning ordinances, which of course are directly related, and seeing if there's a need to make any updates so that the ordinances are consistent with the policy, which is the comprehensive plan. Perfect. So I'll go ahead and skip ahead. So I'm titling all this comprehensive plan update implementation. Implementation, big, giant, word in red there. Go
Next
ahead,
slide.
Doug. Yeah, next slide. So I'm going to quickly just talk through what the future land use policy is and what it says about zoning, and then what our proposed zoning text amendments are, and then entertain any questions, discussion, and talk about next steps. Go ahead. Next slide. And keep going. So the next slide, the comprehensive plan looks like this. You've seen, or used to look like this, excuse me. You remember that map, and then go to the next slide, Doug. So our current map looks quite different. And you already talked about tonight, one of the subject properties was located in the active agriculture character area. Well, that didn't exist before this comprehensive plan was updated. So there's one change already, and there are numerous other changes that are shown on the map here and described in the text. Go ahead to the next slide. A key, I want to bring this up. I showed this many times during the process of doing the plan, but it's kind of remarkable looking at the county and the conditions and locations of prime farmland soils and other, how specifically condensed they are across the northern part of the county, and how the vast majority of the remainder of the county does not have prime farmland soils. And that corresponds very well to where we have active agriculture use, farms, pastures, etc., and where we have primarily forestry, timberland that's harvested for 20 years or what have you. So there's some science behind the land use plan and map is the main point there. Go ahead, next slide. So we wrote into the comprehensive plan this notion of active agriculture being that northern part of the county that requires a different planning approach than the majority of the southern, southwestern part of the county with timber. And we described that appropriate future land uses in active agriculture are active agricultural use and very low density residential. Previously, the comprehensive plan did not use the term very low density, it just said low density. So now, very low density is official policy of the county through the comprehensive plan. So what does that mean? Go ahead to the next slide. We also, and this is the, go ahead, show me the top here. This is the forested area. It says low density residential in the forestry district. So there's a distinction, different parts of the county, active agriculture, forestry,
very low density, low density. We've got to make those distinctions. Go ahead to the next one.
Gotta use the pad here.
It's showing another page, I think, on the next one. And again, I'm just highlighting key aspects of the policy that are going to lead to what we're saying. So, rural community is another one. There was a notion of rural community in the comprehensive plan previously. We carried that forward. And so where we've got these rural community areas in different parts of the county, we're asking questions, what are the most appropriate zoning districts in those rural community areas? Where we're wanting rural residential type development to really happen, how do we promote that through the zoning ordinance or accommodate it? Next slide. And then same for rural residential, same thing. So keep on the next slide. Residential itself, yellow on our map, and there's not much of it because the majority of the county is agriculture and forestry, right? So where we have those established existing residential areas are where we're recommending, residential development. And in a few places, maybe we have sewer, mostly we don't. Are these R1, R2, R4, R5 PR zonings as we have them appropriate for those areas? Next slide. So those kind of questions, again, bring us back to reintroducing the map and where we're talking about. So light green is our active agriculture, very low density residential, primarily agriculture use. Darker green is our forestry, low density residential allowed in amongst the forestry areas. Sort of brownish orange, different nodes are our rural communities. And then we introduced, if you look along the west side and extending up to north of Thomaston, the brownish color is the rural residential zone, which didn't exist before. So through the comprehensive plan process, we said development patterns, roads, and the reality of West Thomaston extending up to north of Thomaston is much more about large lot but not huge lot, low density but not very low density rural residential development. So that's one thing we've got to address as well. Next. So all that, really quick overview. I hope you've read the comp plan cover to cover and multiple times because I wrote it and I'm really proud of it. Yeah, there you go. But it's always there as a reference to go back and study, of course. So moving from there into what do we do with it? Next slide. Well, one other thing. Another part of the comprehensive plan are specifically written goals, policies, strategies. So one of our goals is to minimize land use conflicts with agricultural activity. And that's partly about, that's tied very much to the very low residential density notion along with active agriculture. I think, is there another highlighted bit at the bottom there? No, next page maybe. Yeah, okay, so we've got goals that speak specifically to this. And then a piece of the comprehensive plan is the community work program, which is a to-do list that includes a lot of things, fix a bridge, build a new administration center, etc. But it also says land use ordinances need to be updated. So we basically said in the comprehensive plan that during the 3 years, including and following the update of the plan, we're going to review and update the land use ordinances. So we're doing what the plan tells us to do. Next. So now we're launching straight in, jumping, we've been walking along the stones across the creek, now we're jumping straight in the water. Proposed zoning amendments, big red letter box on all of these says preliminary recommendations. So this is being formulated, and as I'll highlight at the end, we're starting through a process that's going to involve public meetings and then draft and then adoption processes. But this is the substance of what's being proposed as zoning amendments to respond to the comprehensive plan policy recommendations. First, modify the AR district, or the AR classification, to specifically state that it's very low density nature. Now the zoning ordinance also just says low density. And then to correspond to that, dramatically increase the minimum lot size for any new lots that are created. Every existing lot in AR is an existing lot of record, and it remains, and it can be built upon and used, you know, in accordance with the ordinances. This is about subdivision to create new lots. So the proposal at this point is to increase the minimum lot size to somewhere in the range of a 20 to 30 acre minimum lot size within AR. Specifically all about that active agriculture district. We've done comparative analysis of other counties, what their key zoning factors are. That's a higher minimum lot size or larger minimum lot size than all the surrounding counties, except it's consistent roughly with Meriwether County, which currently has a 25 acre minimum lot size in their agricultural areas, although it's qualified. So in some cases you can do smaller than that. Additionally, because we know, and Doug and I talked about some recent circumstances where some very large there's landowners that have 1,000 acre tracts, you know, and multi-hundred acre tracts. And occasionally for different reasons, they want to break those up into still huge tracts of land. So we're looking at additional options that would allow large lot splits where it's not really necessarily subdivision to build a house, but it's more division of a huge tract into large tracts, and provide some options there that would be about organizing timberland or similar possibilities. So that's big idea, big recommendation to dramatically change the minimum lot size in AR. Next one.
Can I go one?
Yeah, there you go. Related, click back one more. Yeah. Related to that, increase the minimum lot width. So we all know that, you know, creating new lots is partly about the overall size of the lot. It's also very much about your road frontage, your lot width. So if we're going to increase the overall lot size, we need to increase the overall minimum lot width. Range, just like we were talking about a 20 to 30 acre minimum lot size range, 200 to 300 foot lot width range, and comparative analysis, that's in line with Pike and Crawford at 200 feet or Lamar and Meriwether at 300 feet. So we're in the ballpark with our neighbors there. Related to that, something that I've worked with in other counties is a minimum lot width to depth ratio, so that you don't end up with lots that are narrow and extraordinarily deep. Some rural counties use this, some urban counties or suburban counties use this. At the moment, we're looking at a 10-to-1 ratio. That'll be on the next slide. And then you've also got your setbacks from the road, from the right-of-way, or in some cases, it's defined as from the center line. So another part of rural agricultural is increasing setbacks. So a proposal to increase the setbacks so that there's a minimum either 60 feet from the right-of-way or 120 feet from the road center line, whichever is greater, and there's some details to work out in there. Again, all this is in AR. Next. I'm moving fast. I'll come to a questions and discussion slide at the end. So the lot depth to width ratio, thinking about this and playing it out a little more, if we were to end up with a 20 acre minimum lot size in AR, that works out mathematically to an approximately 300 foot minimum frontage or width. If you're 300 feet wide, then you're 2,904 feet deep for a 20 acre lot. What that also does, though, is there's some cases, some rural roads and some existing parcels, particularly that reach the river, that are thousands and thousands of feet deep and, I don't know, 100 feet wide, 200 feet wide. So this would if you take a larger parcel, like the example 50 acre parcel, that would require approximately 465 feet of road frontage minimum in order to meet that lot width to depth ratio. This is about creating more rational, manageable lot dimensions in the future. Doesn't impact any existing lot of record, what we're talking about here, purely about creation of new lots. Next. So, all that's AR related. New topic, creating an entirely new district, a new zoning classification called rural estate, which would not have any, would not be the zoning of any land to start off with. It would just be creating a new district in the text, and then anybody could apply to rezone to that. Until there's land zoned that way, it's called a floating district technically. So the purpose, to promote high-quality rural residential. Remember that area we're talking about, west side of Thomaston up to north. Could be elsewhere as well, but specifically there. 3 acre minimum lot size, or 2 acres with sewer. Rarely are you going to have sewer in the county, so primarily 3 acre minimum lot size. 200 foot minimum lot width, 60 foot setback, and then a lot of additional quality standards that are about exterior cladding and building materials, and about view shed preservation, fencing designs, and things like that. So the intent is to take these areas where, okay, we're not going to require you to have super large or very low density, 20, 30 acre lots. We're going to allow 3 acre lots, but we're going to promote extremely high quality standards. We've researched standards in some communities like Milton in North Fulton County that has this, even though it's Fulton County, it's got this rural horse farm aesthetic, very high quality details, very expensive houses, obviously, as well. But just because you promote higher quality standards in certain aspects doesn't mean you have to have extraordinarily expensive houses. Next. Yeah, so just more on that rural preservation rural viewshed preservation standards. We'll go to more detail about what happens in the setbacks across, off the roads. You know, you've got some areas where there'd be no disturbance, and then other areas that are less restrictive, fencing design standards, etc. Next. End result is to look like this. So where you've got 3 acre, 4 acre, 5 acre lots, rural estates, mini farms, etc. Along the roadway, you're aiming for this kind of look. Next. Similar here, different options, doesn't have to be uniform. There's different ways to go about it, but this is what we're talking about. And I think we might do one more picture, yeah. So that's the notion of creating a new rural estate district to try to achieve that type of outcome in appropriate parts of the county. Next. So another option proposed is a conservation subdivision development option. Not mandatory, not required of anybody, but an optional approach. So if you're looking at subdividing land, creating a subdivision in the rural part of the county, one option is the very low density or rural estate, divide up your entire tract into lots. The other option is the conservation subdivision approach, which it's really best understood in the next slide with the picture. So, yeah, go ahead and picture. So left-hand picture is conventional subdivision. You take a tract of land, call that 100 acres overall. You divide it all up into lots based on what your density allowance is. So if that's, I don't know, if that's 20 lots of 5 acres each, it's more than that, but let's just say that for numbers. Then you've subdivided, take out a little bit for roads, but you've carved it all up. And you've got X number of houses that you built. On the right side, same number of houses built, but you've preserved a big chunk as perpetual open space, green space, environmental preserve, etc. Each house is on a smaller lot itself, but still sustainable health department standards, septic tanks, etc. So maybe you've taken 25 houses that are each on, or 20 houses each on 5 acre lots. On the right, you've got 20 houses that are each on maybe a 2 acre lot, and then you've preserved the balance, what would that be, 60 acres, 50 acres as permanent open space. Done in a lot of places. In some places, in other states, it's mandatory approach. Here, I've never seen it mandatory. It's always an option. Sometimes used, rarely, honestly, but it presents an option for developers who want to do a creative and different type of approach. Next. The key is the approach. First, you take a tract of land. First, you designate the open space. The ordinance provides the criteria for what qualifies as open space and how and where and how much. Then, around that, or adjacent to it, or however you figure out where your home sites are, then you connect with roads and paths, and last you draw the lot lines. So it's the inverse of the conventional subdivision process, which is basically a geometry exercise of how do I carve up the whole into the maximum number of lots. Next. So that's, we're glad to go back and discuss that more, but moving on. There were a few hot button issues. I should have prefaced all of this. We met as a part of the commissioners' spring retreat, winter retreat, spring retreat agenda, and just kind of discussed all this stuff. And out of that discussion came these types of recommendations. So among several things, they brought up a concern with flag lots, abuse of flag lots, if you will, a proliferation of flag lots. So the proposal here is to amend the county standards concerning flag lots to more closely match Pike County standards, your neighbor to the north, and where most of your flag lots are going to happen. I think it's going to be in the north part of the county. So this just describes, you know, how our standards here would look if we made them more like Pike County. You couldn't have 2 or 3 driveways close together. If you've got, you know, flag lot, you've got the driveway and then it reaches back to the part of the lot. So in Pike County, the 2 driveways to flag lots can't be closer than 400 feet together. So you can't have driveway, driveway, driveway all reaching back to flag lots. You got to have them spaced out. So that's one recommendation. Something, you know, on the width of the panhandle, they call it, of the flag lot, having a minimum there. If the flag lot overall is larger, then you have a wider panhandle because there's potential for a very large flag lot to be further subdivided in the future. So you really need enough width for that to become a road, or you anticipate that with good planning. And then some other things you've got are existing standards. Next. Dead-end road length. This comes up a lot. This is an existing requirement. The current limit of a dead-end road, this is within the subdivision regulations, is 1,200 feet. With the specification in the subdivision regulations that the Planning Commission can approve an exception. So to make it a bit more difficult for that rule to, you know, define an exception, the suggestion is for that to be like a zoning circumstance, require a recommendation by the Planning Commission, but then require approval by the Board of Commissioners. And again, this is about trying to get a better road network as development happens. The more subdivisions we have in the future that are just one point of entry and access to a big subdivision, the more traffic problems we're going to have. Next. Related driveway proliferation limitations. Different counties do different things here, some nothing, and you have as many new driveways as you want on county roads. Other counties severely limit building any new homes, putting any new lots with direct frontage onto existing county roads, and require new subdivision roads to be built. And I think we're somewhere in between the two. So the notion is to maybe set a limit of 5 newly created residential lots in a subdivision, you know, a proper major design subdivision that can have driveways directly on an existing road, and all the other lots in the subdivision have to front onto a newly created subdivision street. That would not apply to minor subdivisions, like it says. You're just talking about new major subdivision. Mainly R1 could apply to the new rural estate. Next. And then I think this is the last one. There might be a couple other wording tweaks and things here and there in the mix, and of course you'll see the entire revised text once we get into the details, but for overview purposes. The last one here is ADUs, accessory dwelling units. This is increasingly important and being embraced by a lot of counties as a way to help address affordable housing, missing middle housing, what have you, housing options and flexibility. You see them in city centers where you've got a tiny lot and a house and a garage apartment, or, you know, a tiny house or something behind it. And you see them in rural areas where you've got huge lots, big houses, and a guest house, and all different types of things. And the notion is to encourage that in Upson County within reason or with controls. So with this new rural estate district that we're creating, allow one accessory dwelling unit per lot in rural estate. You're on a lot that's 3 acres or larger, so there's plenty of space for it. Have a, some kind of minimum, maximum size for the structure itself. For example, an accessory dwelling unit doesn't need to be larger than the house itself. There's a relationship. Give flexibility so that it could be within the primary structure as a basement apartment or a separate structure, and require shared driveways, so you're not creating more driveways from the street. So there's more standards that can be worked into this. There's lots of examples. Morgan County, Madison area over east of Atlanta has a pretty robust, strict new ADU ordinance in place that we've looked at. Thomaston has an ADU ordinance that allows accessory dwelling units in a lot of residential circumstances in Thomaston. So we'll keep looking at different things there. Next. Yes, that's where I thought we were. So I ran through that lightning speed. I know if you want to discuss any more, we certainly can. I can talk about any of them. If you want to just say, hey, this is a great update, we'll look forward to the next step, that's fine with me too.
I know that you've said this already, but this is coming from the Board of Commissioners meeting we had months ago. Where are we thinking the next step? I mean, are they going to say an actual text before the Planning Commission, or are we going to develop the ideas? Okay.
Yeah, well, public meetings is first. So these concepts presented in a way, for a public meeting, you don't put out on the table the zoning ordinance with red line amendments. You do, maybe, but you also have presentation like this, that's summary, that's got pictures and graphics that explains the concepts. So Doug, be talking about when and how to schedule public meeting, open house, the same types of meetings we have for the comp plan. So that there's some public discussion about this before it goes to draft ordinance for review, and then the formal processes of public hearings and adoption.
And I think you've all figured this out. This is a big deal. This is major changes following adoption of the comp plan.
So just make sure I've got my brain wrapped around this. Right now, we have a ton of lots out there, or property that has been, they're not subdivisions, somebody has subdivided into 2-acre lots, and they're all sitting there. They may not have any house on it right now.
Existing lots of record.
Are we saying they're AR, they meet the 2-acre minimum, required an AR today? Those are not going to be affected by this change.
That's correct.
They would have no problem going to get a building permit, put a house on it.
I mean, there's different things you can try to do, but it gets into more complex legal territory if you tell someone who's got an existing lot of record that can get the health department to say, sure, you're good to go with.
Oh, I'm not saying I want to do anything. I'm saying we would have complete uproar with all the 2-acre lots that people have systematically made those 2-acre lots to meet that. If we said, oh, by the way, now you got to have 3.
Right. That's not the intent.
This is a tract of land that is now going to be split into new lots, certain new surveys, that a minimum for AR would have to be 20 to 30.
That's right.
Or if it's something, okay, somebody does AR and it's 30 acres, that person buys it, down the road they come back and they want to split it into smaller tracts. That could become, at their request, for rezoning the floating rural estate.
Exactly.
Or 1 or R2.
Or
any of the Rs that we already have.
That's right.
But for a 3-acre tract.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, if for the rural estate.
All the rezoning options are still there. What you're making more difficult is the creation of small lots in the rural part of the county without a zoning process.
And that's exactly the way it is now. We have a lot of folks got 1 acre AR. Happens all the time. Everybody on my staff says, magic date, February of 1995. Was it that size before February of 1995? If it was a substandard size, it's a legal non-conforming use for size, and it's a legal non-conforming use / grandfathered in. That's regular now, because remember, as I tell people, before 1995, there was a lot of stuff going on in Upson County. And, you know, when you just adopted a zoning ordinance in 95, well, not everything is consistent with that zoning ordinance. We do that right now.
And this might have been in your presentation, but pardon me, that was a lot of information
It was,
to absorb.
I know, that's why I put this here. I expect, we can go back.
Somebody has a 30-acre lot
Yeah.
that's AR.
Right.
Today, they can split that one time with, they can have that one tract cut off of it, I believe, without that being called as
I think they can
subdivision.
that, can't they? You're talking about, without going through a subdivision platting?
Yes.
Or
Yeah,
formal
oh,
platting
for
process?
subdivision, yes, you can
Small.
split it once. Now, when you split it into 3 or more, and this is a change that we're gonna recommend if we, I think we discussed this, but we have had a recent occurrence where somebody split it once one day and split it again the next day. That's not acceptable. While it may be legal, it's not ethical. And what we'll do, and this is a common thing in subdivision ordinances to catch those, if you subdivide it once under the threshold, and then you may not subdivide again for 12 months, or you've got to go back through the process.
Some places 3 years, some places 5 years.
Okay,
There's
well, I was thinking
varying-
12 months, so
Yeah,
maybe we can
there's
make it.
different requirements on that.
But we're going to stop that.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's not happened a lot, but I'm very well aware of one situation where that happened. So there'll be other tweaking of the ordinances.
So that's what I'm saying, if somebody comes up and they've got 30 acres now in AR, and they want to split that into 3 10-acre tracts.
It's a minor subdivision, only administratively reviewed now. Y'all don't see that unless they need a variance or a waiver, or for some reason they're not meeting the requirements otherwise. Or as long as they're not putting in major roads or a new septic system or a new water system.
So if all 3
administratively
lots
done.
have their own septic, their own water, their own driveway onto the highway.
But that's the current
That's the
scenario.
current, but-
scenario. In the proposed scenario, an existing 30-acre tract in AR would not be able to be further subdivided as an AR zone
It would move to rural
It would have to
estate.
be rezoned to rural estate.
Or R1
something.
Or R1 or R2, okay.
And yeah,
And then each 10-acre lot has their own water, their own sewer, and their own drive.
that's right.
Okay.
But again, if they have a unified, we'll have to see how this other stuff works. And if the new ordinance compels them to build a street, y'all gonna be reviewing it. So, yeah, all these requirements are gonna work together.
I just see there a lot of people out there that would have AR right now that's going to say down the road with this, hey, I want to split my 30 acres up into 10-acre tracts or 5, 6-acre tracts. Okay? Yes, that meets the rural estate minimum of 3 per tract. They can do that. They can apply to have that rezoned, those tracts rezoned as rural estate or whatever. I'm thinking that right, correct?
That's correct. That's
So if there's a rural estate here, you said it's floating, but there's not another one that's for 4 miles,
And so
we're
then
not gonna have a problem
So
spotting
then the
that.
evaluation would be, is this proposed rezoning to rural estate consistent with the comprehensive plan's recommendations? Is it reasonably consistent with adjacent surrounding properties? Same sort of criteria that you go through in any rezoning evaluation would apply there.
Now, I think you're getting into really a judgment call. It's not maybe as acceptable good planning versus bad planning. My subdivision has 5 acres and yours has 10, 15, or 20 right next door to each other. Now you're getting a little more fuzzier into what's spot zoning and what's not. You still have relatively large lot residential. I have somewhat smaller, somewhat larger. Is that spot zone, especially if we're talking 50, 60, 70 acres at a time?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Right, you're creating a new district really at that point. Spot zoning is, I think, traditionally understood to be more about a single parcel of land. So if you've got a sea of residential and you stick it in one in the middle of it.
Right.
C1,
Yeah,
whatever.
it's not gonna fall into a
Yeah.
spot.
Right. And there's no magic, in my opinion, not necessarily the legal opinion here, but there's no magic to spot zoning. It's, it's what you make of it. It's a term that's out there that's, some people take very seriously, some people say there's no basis for spot zoning.
My statement is there's good spot zoning
Yeah.
and there's bad spot zoning.
What's most important is consistency with your land use policy, your comprehensive plan, and then recognizing the other factors that have been proven through the courts, Gould criteria, et cetera, which are built into your ordinance whenever you evaluate all this.
So this would increase our amount of non-conforming AR properties drastically.
Legally non-conforming.
Legally non-conforming, yes.
Everybody uses the term grandfathering, and that's
Yeah.
fine for street level, but the technical term in
Legally
your ordinance is
non-conforming.
legal you're legal. We can stop legal, but you don't mean the current regulations, but you're legal.
You're legal, right.
Or you're grandfathered in.
This is really about impacting the future subdivision of land in the county.
And I think the frustration, to sort of speak on behalf of the Board of Commissioners, and certainly you're welcome to talk to them yourselves, is they just see that this 2 acre, 2 acre, 2 acre, and everyone's a driveway on all these county roads. That's just not good development. It's not growing the right way, a phrase we heard a couple of times earlier this evening. We want to grow better than that. And these are the directions that they've talked about over the last, even more than since the retreat last year.
Right.
They said, even before the comp plan, they said, let's get past the comp plan adoption, and then let's get firmer about these changes.
Let's explore this as a policy and adopt it first.
So these conversations probably are.
Well, I definitely think, there was a day in time where all the big tracts of land, you knew who owned them. Not today. That's not necessarily the case. Some of them's been chopped up into, they're still big tracts, but they're smaller, large tracts.
Sure.
But, it all kind of goes, you're not from around here, are you? You get people that owns those. And you don't know what their intentions are going to do with those. So I don't have a problem with this. I want to make sure that we do a very good job at explaining to people what this means for them that are in AR with 2 acre tracts out there with nothing on it.
Well, we certainly encourage them all to come to the public
So,
meetings. And
that's
not
what I'm
public
saying. I mean,
hearings,
I want to
the
make
public
it very,
meetings.
very easy for them to understand, because I think that will help us tremendously to avoid a panic, if you will, because there are a lot of 2 acre lots in Upson County.
Sure, sure. And in my experience, they'll also be concerned from people with the 20 acre lots.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because you've changed their ability to subdivide in the future. That's
Without
the way I'll-
rezoning.
Without
rezoning.
rezoning. You've changed the process. That's correct.
Yep.
I'll be happy to talk more.
Can we
answer more
get that
questions.
presentation? Do you have that?
Did you email it?
I did, yes.
Okay.
It must have been after I arrived here.
Yes, yes.
Can you
Yeah,
forward that to us?
absolutely, I'll
Okay.
send it out.
And you can also just download it.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Anything else? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being patient with us tonight.
No.
You didn't know you were going to have to spend the whole evening with us,
I have no
did you?
idea how many planning commission meetings I've sat through all around the state, and I find some entertainment in all of it.
He got a copy of the, he knew what the agenda was.
Yeah, he knew what the agenda. I bet he didn't know what he was in
Don't
for.
let him sucker you in.
I've seen similar, yeah.
Okay, item C is the rules biennial discussion of rules and procedure changes. I think everybody got this in your packet. There's two items. The highlighted section is page 3, number F2. This talks about getting packets upon submittal and acceptance by the zoning administrator is complete. Outside of the normal meeting packet delivery date. I think that's something we had all talked about at different times. Item 4 is a maximum of 4 new applications, rezonings, variances, special exceptions, subdivision plats, placed on the regular monthly meeting agenda considered by the Planning Commission.
And obviously that came from me, but maybe after
Right.
Lee's discussion, you understand why
Right.
we may want to limit how many new applications we have at any one meeting.
Yeah.
If you didn't know what happened to the city when they came up with their new zoning district, they were flooded with rezoning requests, and they did something similar to what I'm talking about here is, let's say, wait a minute, you got to get the first X number of slots. After that, you're going to go to the next month. And I realize that slows down the process, but y'all tell me, this will be your rules of procedure. How many new applications do you want to have to hear every meeting, and the debates, and especially if there's controversial.
Right.
Can you imagine having 4 of those a meeting?
Yeah, exactly.
You just had 2.
Exactly.
Or 1.5.
And stop me if there's conversation that needs to be had. Item H, talking about a conflict of interest on an agenda item. There are 3 options that are available to the commissioner.
Right, and what we would do is, this would be the commission, unless you want to give them options. In my career, I've heard communities have one of these as the option. I would suggest you just pick one of them. I mean, there are groups where if you have a conflict and you declare, you gotta leave the room, and we'll call you back when that particular issue is done. Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you just want to have them sit in the audience. These options are for you to discuss tonight or, next meeting. You're only required to discuss these one meeting. You can adopt them the next. So if you want to adopt these at your next meeting, you can do that. Or if you want to have further discussion, I realize that the evening is getting long. But these ors are for you to pick one of those.
Okay. So, having said that, do we want to review these next meeting, have a chance to review these, come back next meeting, make some suggestions to this? At that point, do we approve them next meeting? Because it's on the agenda this meeting.
This is
the
on your
public.
schedule.
Yep.
So if you come up with a language you want at your next meeting, you can adopt it next meeting. If you want to play it out to another meeting, you can take another meeting. Just have to discuss it once and adopt the second one.
We're good with that?
Yeah.
Sure.
Do we need a motion for that? No? Okay.
That's your rules of procedure already?
All right. Then make sure to bring these 2 back with you next month. So we can discuss those. Item 6, other business, there is none. Item 7, planning commissioner issues and announcements. Does anyone have anything?
I don't have any.
Okay. Item 8, secretary's issues and announcements.
I just want to thank those of you who could make it. I'm sorry, Jeff, you couldn't make it to our little reception, but things happen. But thank you for doing that. I'm sorry we didn't go. Ironically, for one of your hearings, one of the other alumni came to that and didn't come to the reception. So unfortunately, I know that we've probably got 2 or 3 times the number of alumni living in the community than came to the reception. But I said a little bit then, and I think you heard it from both our chairman and the Board of Commissioners chair. Thank you for what you do. You're basically volunteers. You get a little stipend, which certainly doesn't cover the time that you do. You care about your community, and we don't have to agree on what that means all the time, and that's fine. You're made up of 28,000, 30,000 people that have various opinions in Upson County, and that's fine. But you have volunteered your time and your efforts to come here and do this, and you're part of a 30-year legacy of folks who've been doing this since since then. So thank you for what you do.
And again, thank you for what you do for us and Guadalupe, because we definitely need your guidance through this.
Well, that's what I enjoy about my career.
All right, if nothing else, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion.
All in favor? Aye. And thank you, Heath, for staying for the duration.
This is a good one. A good one to stay for.
Yeah, a lot of meat. A lot of meat in this one.
Stop the music.
Stop the music.
I just wish they had left the air on.
God, what was it? I think the time